And we're rolling. Overview of the Bible, Revelation.
We're picking up in Revelation 13. We left off just mentioning one of the most famous verses in the Bible where it mentions the number of a man, the number of the beast is 666. So I'm just going to reread maybe a couple of verses here, starting in verse 15. It says, "And there was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast." Now this is given to the beast, the one we'd call the Antichrist, that the image of the beast might even speak and cause as many as do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. So the whole thing here is there's a desire to bring worship to this beast and to the image of the beast. And 16, he causes all the small and the great and the rich and the poor and the freemen and the slaves to be given a mark on their right hand or their forehead. He provides that no one should be able to buy or sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. And so the name of the beast, the number of his name are the two things that are the markings it talks about here. And then he puts here his wisdom. "Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. This is probably one of the most famous verses in all of the Bible right here. One of the most famous numbers across the world is 666. And so there's been all kinds of speculation as to who this is and how do you calculate the name and that kind of thing. I think we'll understand that better as we get closer. I've heard so many speculations. I remember years ago I heard Henry Kissinger. He says his name adds up to 666, but it's like adds up according to what language? I mean, this was written in Greek. We're reading it in English, and people take all kinds of things and manipulate it around. I remember years ago, it was probably 1975 or 76, I was listening to someone comment on this, and they're saying, and they were giving the characteristics that they saw of the Antichrist. And they said, he's this and he's that, and he'll be related to this person and affiliated with this, and all these things he had tied in there. And he says, and he's real calm, and he's like, is there anyone in the world that fits this description? And then all of a sudden, just with great, yes, Juan Carlos, King of Spain, and it was like, what? So I mean, there's been all kinds of speculations. I think both Henry Kissinger died at like 100 years old just recently or something, and I don't know about Juan Carlos, King of Spain, but anyway, there's been all along people speculating about who this may be, and of course there's speculation whether this is a Jewish Antichrist, a Jewish ruler, or I believe it's someone outside of Israel that's going to be the Antichrist ruler or whatever. And so there's so many speculations. A lot of people, especially in the West, we take it and we say, well, it must be someone in power like the President of the United States, or speculation has been it's the Pope. It's all these different things, and everyone's trying to add up the number of his name and come in. I don't know, whatever system you use, you could probably come up with something to add up to 666. Or one translation, it says the number is probably 616 instead. So you could probably, if 666 doesn't work, then you add it up, get 616. I don't know. You can work on it. But I think what we need to look at here is, one, there's going to be a worship involved with the beast and the image of the beast. And people have been afraid over the years that someone would sneak into your room, put 666 on your head or your hand, and you're going to hell. Well, that's not what it's talking about here. It says those who worship the beast or the image of the beast. And that'll be emphasized again in the next chapter. And see, it talks about a mark being put on their hand or forehead. And so right after that, we get this contrast in chapter 14. It starts in verse 1, "And I looked, and behold, the Lamb was standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his name and the name of his Father written on their foreheads." So we've got the contrast of the 666 on the foreheads or hands of those that worship the beast, and the name of the Father written on the foreheads, name of the Lamb and of his Father written on the foreheads of these 144,000 that we saw sealed earlier, that were protected from all these from the seals, starting with the sixth seal, and they were protected from the plagues that were coming upon the earth. And it says, "I heard a voice," verse 2, "from heaven like the sound of many waters and like the sound of loud thunder. The voice which I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harps." So a sound of water like a waterfall, sound of loud thunder. A voice which I heard was like harpists playing on their harp. And they sang a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures. So before the throne and before the four living creatures, this seems to be a heavenly picture. So the 144,000, that were sealed on the earth, all of a sudden here it looks like there's a heavenly picture. So something looks like maybe it's transpired here, where as the plagues are about to be poured out on the earth, we're going to see here in a minute, it looks like the 144,000 find themselves in kind of a heavenly setting, singing before the throne. And said, no one was able to know this song except those that were the 144,000 who were purchased from the earth. And these are those, it says in verse 4, that have not been defiled with women, for they kept themselves chaste. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. I think that's a really key verse there. They follow the Lamb wherever he goes. That should be our heart, is to be able to, whatever Jesus is doing, wherever he's leading, we follow him wherever he goes. These have been purchased from among men as first fruits to God and to the Lamb. And no lie was found in their mouth, they are blameless. So first fruits is like when you have a harvest, you take the first bit that comes in, and you give it as a sacrifice to the Lord. These, which means actually that later on there's going to come a further harvest. And I wondered here if they were first fruits and there is more like them that are coming behind them. And it says, a curious verse here, or verse 5, is no lie was found in their mouth, they are blameless. Which reminds me of a passage in Zephaniah chapter 3. In Zephaniah, it's talking about the day of the Lord here, day of great judgment and all of that. And then it goes on to talk about the remnant of Israel. And it says, verse 12, but I will leave among you a humble and lowly people, and they will take refuge in the name of the Lord. The remnant of Israel will do no wrong. And then this is the part that reminded me of this. And tell no lies, nor will a deceitful tongue be found in their mouths, for they shall feed and lie down with no one to make them tremble. So it talks about a time of peace coming upon the remnant of Israel, and that group that talk about they're sanctified in their mouths. They tell no lies. They tell the truth. They don't. And you know, that's the kind of thing we read in James, that if anyone can control his tongue, he can control his whole being. Well, here it looks like there's a people here that are finally redeemed, and the characteristic of that is they don't tell lies. There's no deceit in their mouths. So interesting thing tying in this passage in Revelation 14 with Zephaniah. Then there's this next part here. It comes the vision of the angel with the gospel as a heading that I have before verse 6. And there's an angel that's flying in heaven, and it says he's got the gospel. And he's preaching it down to the earth. Some people have speculated maybe this is a satellite going around. You know, I don't know. To preach to those who live on the earth and to every people of tongue and tribe and nation. And he says, here's what he says, fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come. And worship him who made the heaven and the earth and sea and springs of water. So there's the contrast being built here between worshiping God and the test of worshiping this beast and this image of the beast. And that's the contrast, that's the battle that's going on here. This one flying in the heavens, this angel in the mid-heaven. That's why some people have said, well, maybe that's like our higher upper atmosphere kind of thing. Maybe it is a satellite projection coming down to the earth. An angel means, a messenger. And another, so he's saying to worship God. And the contrast here is there's been this thing of, there's the pressure right now to worship this beast or the image of the beast and have his name or the number of his name put on your hand or forehead. And then it says another angel, verse 8, announces the fall of Babylon. And that's going to be a theme that we look at here when we get to chapter 17. And it says, she who has made all the nations drink of the wine of the passion of her immorality. And of course, when we're looking at immorality among nations in the Bible, it's usually talking about, like it talked about Israel's immorality or her adulterous ways. It was talking about false worship. And so we're looking at maybe something here, this Babylon the Great, who's caused many to worship in a false way. And that's the battle of this whole section here of chapter 13 and 14. Who are you going to worship? Verse 9, and another angel, a third one, followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives a mark on his forehead or upon his hand, so it's to those that worship the beast or his image and receive the mark, he also will drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is mixed in full strength in the cup of his anger, and he will be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. So here it talks about the fate of those who take the mark, but it's not just who get marked. And that's what people have feared, I think, over the years, is that someone will come along, put a mark on you, and then all of a sudden this is your fate. It prefaces by saying, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives the mark. And so what we're looking at here is this is the thing that's being contended for here is, who are you going to worship? This is the greatest test at the end of the age. Who are you going to worship? You're going to fear God and worship him? Or are you going to fear the Antichrist, the beast, and the image of the beast and worship him?